Hello, I'm Johnny Goodley with the MHI. I am a MHI scholar who works as a care coordinator and on the data team, and a rising second year at the New College of Florida, whose prospective major is biopsychology and a minor in neuroscience. Today I'll be interviewing David Gidden, and David Gidden, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello again, everyone. Let's see. I think Rebecca says she probably spliced the past portion in, and one of the things that I think is important to share is that I've worked in many different countries, in many different areas, and that I'm self-taught. And I'm self-taught because as a youngster, I was learning challenged. So in so many of the areas that I would have incredible ideas in, I was unable to make those ideas acceptable in tests. So I'll share, I'm 83 years old right now. So this is going back to the 40s where they would put a dunce cap on you and you sit in a corner. What I'm really blessed with is that I have a great heart. And that great heart covers lots of anger and rage. However, the gift that I've been given is that I've been able to use creativity to transmute that anger and rage. And some of the things that are really exciting, in fact, they're milestones in my life, and they're called the Akenga series of projects. And they include automobile design, boat design, and aircraft design. And going backwards, the aircraft is now in the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum in DC. The boat is somewhere in California. I've lost track of that. And the automobile, the Akenga, back in 1967 to 69, was one of the most advanced automobiles of its kind. It was a 165-mile-an-hour road vehicle with closed circuit television for rear vision, computer parking, accident warning systems, and the wonder, and I'll share something about Akenga, which is really important, both for me as a self-taught designer and as this kid from Brooklyn, because the Akenga is a name from the Igbo mythology of Eastern Nigeria. I had no idea when I chose this name for this car back in the 60s, anything about Nigerian history. So the name came to me. And one of the things that I share in other interviews is that there was a spiritual dimension to how this vehicle appeared. And I knew nothing about automobile design. Many of you hear, well, people channel things, they bring things together. As a photographer at that point, I went to my background paper, I drew this car, and it was complete in 6 months. With the greatest team possible, the greatest coach builders in England, the greatest computer scientists of those days in England, the greatest craftsmen. And one of the things that really touches me, whether it's boats or aircrafts or working with the Mayans here or working in Japan, is that I find such a gift when cross-cultural harmony can come together in a way and can really focus on a idea, a vision, and manifest it as an artifact, a project, or a process in very, very quick time. And I will say that over the years, just personally, I've had to overcome the schism, how can I put it, of not so much sadness, but an embarrassment that I didn't have the abilities to learn in a conventional way. Because although I could be commissioned by the Smithsonian to give workshops, and give workshops in Japan, in Mitsui Heavy Industries, in the school system in this country, I could show what I've done and they say, but you don't have a degree. Well, I don't have a degree, but I have knowledge of things that I've shared around the world. And concerning this project, which is the Only Hearts Art Piece Project, this was created by 3,500 students in Sarasota 20 years ago. Their vision on how to make peace in the world and how to actualize it through their interest, whether it's in robotics, in mathematics, in the arts, in the sciences. There are 3,500 youngsters that don't know that their work is touching students around the world. And it's pretty amazing, these kids. So I guess that's sort of a brief overview of so many things I could talk about, but I prefer to have an interaction so we can share back and forth, and maybe that'll fire some things within me and I'll have a chance to learn more about you.
Could you speak a little bit about your musical dimension and the instruments?
I was wondering if you'd asked, I'm also a self-taught musician. I must have channeled Lisa because somehow, whoa, great. Okay, because somehow I put my instrument next to me. I love music, particularly classical Indian music, and I'm a neophyte. I'm like below kindergarten, but I designed and built an instrument and I'm learning how to play it. So I put it here, Lisa, that's why I would say I was channeling you. So I'll show you what the instrument looks like. So this is something I made. It's a 23-string guitar that is fretless.
Dig that, guys. Dig that. What do you think Elvis or Prince have to say about that? Mm-hmm.
So that's what I spend time learning my way through, because since I built it and I love classical Indian music from the point of view that I love music as a vehicle for healing and for balance. So my meditation often is a music meditation with this particular instrument.
So you do the soundtracks for some of your video and graphic projects as well, right?
Yes, there's soundtracks of my music online. And all I can say is it's a lot of fun, and I don't take it out a lot. I'm very, very private with it. But it nurtures me dearly. So thanks for asking, Lisa.
And you guys see the example of the Love It dot today. I mean, and urge our listeners to go and check this out. It's an ongoing project with arts, interaction, and we need more love in the world today, right? Well, this is a way. People say, what can we do? We can counter the misinformation. We can counter the violent video game indoctrination and put love back in children's hearts that they're naturally born with before it gets corrupted by all
Well,
this.
I like to do something that's very simple. It's the link that I sent, I think, to Rebecca, maybe, that's a link to this project. And one can download the project in, right now, 24 different languages. And what the project encourages the participant to do, whether they're students or family members or people in corporations or other organizations, is to write one word in the center of the heart. And quickly, I'll read what it says on the back. It says, your visioning works, which basically is if you have an idea of something, whether you're in academia, whether you're in sports, if you have an idea for something, I've always found out if you write it out, if you give it a form, it's the first step. So this is about how do we vision peace and conciliation in the world. So it says, your visioning works. Simply write in the center of your heart one word that most represents what you want to manifest for the well-being of you, your family, and for your community locally and globally. Put your card in a special place on your desk, your altar next to your flowers, or besides a lovely candle. Know that in a meaningful way, the power of your stated intention is a giant step towards manifesting that which is in your hearts and ours. So that's what that project is about. And one thing that I will share about this project that is one of the most endearing things that happened. For my 80th birthday, I decided to drop out of life completely. I gave up everything that I owned, gave up my car, gave up my guitar. Happily, my beloved kept my guitar for me. I gave up everything, and I decided I'm going to drop down in the Southern Hemisphere and experience what it's like being under a different constellation, because all of my life, I've lived in the Northern Hemisphere. So I decided I'm going to Argentina. So I dropped into Argentina, and I thought I would know no one there, but someone had a friend meet me at the airport, and someone arranged a hotel for me for 2 weeks, and I had no idea who paid for it. However, what this was about, I started sharing this with schools and different education ministries in Argentina. And on a first meeting with the heads of the school system in 3 of the largest states in Argentina, this project immediately went into that school system. So it really is a place of wonder for me that there are places in the world that are using this project, and that students from Sarasota, Manatee County who are involved in this are really lighting a spark on the others.
We're so glad that you are just trying to spread the love. Like Stevie Wonder said, love's in need of love today.
Yeah.
But the power of collective thought really does have impact. And I mean, think about Argentina and Chile. These were places of incredibly prior repressive regimes that are now,
of course,
evolved and continue to evolve.
And very difficult right now because of the economic situation. I was thinking of returning to live in Argentina. The J.F. Kennedy Museum in Buenos Aires was going to underwrite my project in Argentina. And I was really happy to leave the US and go and live in Argentina and work on this project. However, COVID hit and everything closed down. So I'm still here in the area. I've had my COVID, so I'm past that. And on the road to wellness, and just looking to see what the next steps are for this 83.
Well, if you need a physician escort, Argentina's on my bucket list. I speak Spanish. We could work something out.
Hola, muy bueno.
Qué buenísimo. Johnny, you have some more questions for him?
Yeah. I guess another question is, how did you like get in contact with Dr. Merritt for the first time? How did you two meet? How did you in turn like get associated with the MHI?
I met Lisa at a Kwanzaa gathering years and years and years ago. Yeah, wow. And the kids were tiny, actually.
Yes. That's how you mark time.
Yeah, wow.
It was inevitable. Like spirits, my mom being an artist also was in the artist community.
Yeah, wow.
And there were not that many artists or creative forces of color back in the day, as we say, in the Sarasota area, and it was inevitable. And David was so profound, and Amara, who's on with us, was
Hi, Amara,
quite young.
I would see you, but
Was very taken with the instrument. And Amara's also a musical talent and gift and plays 5 different instruments, and got into an immediate, very profound conversation. And he was quite taken. I mean, I think she was maybe 4 or 5 at the time.
Oh, it's ages ago, yeah.
She was fully understanding what he was saying and then asking questions, and he allowed her to touch this incredible,
of course,
20-something string device. And yeah, so it begins, as they say. And just to know how it works, there's a thing about, there's a whole understanding on spiritual connection in our cultures. And when we had our 25th anniversary celebration, our very first kind of big fundraising celebration, and I wanted to honor community champions, the very first person I wanted to make sure was to honor David. And ironically, I was thinking to him, this is what we do, and I wasn't somehow getting in touch with him. And Amara and I were taking the dog to the dog park. And who do we just walk right into? With David. It was a great reunion, right? Yeah, that's how things work.
Oh, can I interject something that is really an interesting loop about the automobile that I talked about?
Please.
Okay, again, the automobile is called a Kenga, and the Kenga automobile was designed as a stylization of the Kenga mask on wheels, looking skyward to spirit. So you had the nose of the car. When you see a picture of the car, you had the closed-circuit television in the nose and the radiator, the mouth open as a high-speed air brake. The important thing for this guy from Brooklyn is that over 50 years ago, I chose the name of a vehicle of a culture. Oh my gosh, there it is. Someone's doing magic that I don't know how to do.
That's me. I wanted to see a picture of it, and I figured I might as well share it with everyone.
Wow.
This is you, right? This is you standing next to the car?
You can
That's
also find, there's a video link on his website of this thing flying through the roads.
This is funny. This is actually me with it's the 1968 model of the Kenga Mark II. That was the middle model. So you can see, this was the cheek line. You have the nose on the back. However, the important thing to know while looking at this picture, here's a guy from Brooklyn that came up with this car, gave it a Nigerian name, particularly from Eastern Nigeria, of the Igbo culture. And wow, okay, so because of this, I become one of the top auto designers in the UK. Before I went to Argentina, my partner decided to give me a DNA, one of these DNA tests to see backgrounds and things like that. And it blew me out of the water, as did the latest update, because the latest update that I have on my DNA test is that my origin is Eastern Nigerian. My culture is Igbo. So how did I 50 years ago bring through something, oh my gosh, give it a name, and now all these years later find out there is another connection beyond my imagining.
Run it.
So,
See, let's see if I think this one shows it. So
oh, this is, yes. I'll
speed it
encourage
ahead.
you all
It'll take you to the
also-
part with the car running. Take speed it ahead. Isn't it at the end, maybe? No, that's just this guy interviewing him.
Yeah,
There's another one on YouTube that you can find with the car running.
these are some of my airplane designs. And again, the airplane designs are all, you know,
Understand, this is like 1960s when we were watching the Jetsons and thinking like, this was so super space age cool, right? You guys see that on the old time cartoons channel now?
but you know what's so important about this and why I designed the vehicle? Because for me, I escaped from the United States in 1964. And what I found in London was an incredible welcoming for my abilities that weren't possible in the United States.
And why weren't they possible, David?
They were impossible. Well, when I was a photographer, for instance, I could only get work photographing models for Black advertising. You know, and also it was the days when there was no electronic flash when I started photography. That didn't exist. In fact, in high school, I had to learn how to make flash powder. And I guess, do any of you guys know what flash powder is?
It's an explosion.
But no, so I went to Europe because I couldn't make it in this country, and my anger was getting to a point that I needed to get somewhere else. But I got to England, and automatically I was valued for my abilities. And that is something that I don't know how you explain that, particularly when you're self-taught and you just say, I have an idea. People say, can you do it? You don't have any letters. I said, but I can do it. I know I can do it. And they trust you. And then you prove yourself right.
Could you scroll to then and look at it flying, Olympia? The one that the second YouTube that I put in the chat, that's got the car running too. That would be kind of cool to see.
That's the one I clicked on, but it just gave me it just linked to that slideshow part. Hold on.
I think there's a video link on the slideshow. If you look in the chat again, I put a second YouTube in.
Yeah, that's the one. I clicked on the one that you put in. Let me see.
So, you know,
yeah, so anyway, this is what's important is that you kept finding ways to have opportunity to manifest your gifts. And that's what we believe at MHI for our scholars, that we believe in all of them. Everybody learns differently, has issues, whatever, but we believe everyone has a kernel within them that has to be cultivated. Everyone's, you know, diamonds in the rough that are just inevitably going to shine, just given encouragement, opportunity, resources. And your story is so inspiring to many of them who share similar challenges. I know Amara being one of them. And you guys have a special connection because of that. Because being artists, I was reading a recent thing by Nikola Tesla.
Tesla, sure.
Was an amazing visionary. Imagine being in the 20s talking about we're going to communicate around the world with devices that'll fit in our vest pockets. I mean, that's what he was out of his mind, right?
Well, I'll share something with you that's incredibly important, because I was fortunate back in 1958 to be hired by which was then Sports Cars Illustrated. So I became a staff member for Car and Driver magazine as their staff photographer until I left for London in 1964. And we knew in those days, because of our interaction with the techs at General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, Ferrari, BMW, that by the time we got to 1980, cars were going to be doing 55, 60 miles a gallon. What happened to that? The technology was there. What happened to it? You know, it begs a lot of questions, particularly as we go through this change that I've just described to you that we're all going through right now. Because how do we really become free enough to make our dreams within a construct that could be limiting? And we're going into high tech in ways that we can't imagine. And I think what Lisa mentioned is very, very important. You have to hold to a vision, have to hold to the dream, but we have to be so grounded on what the reality is of the political, socio-economical theater that we're existing in a global sense. And, you know, I encourage you all from the bottom of my heart. And I'm going to be a bit crass, but I think it's something that we use from the old neighborhood in Brooklyn that you'll understand. And that statement is, bullshit baffles brains. You know, don't let it get to you, you know.
That's right. Just keep persisting. So I think we have up here is another one of your beautiful video, image, musics. He also creates these wonderful seasonal celebrations.
Yeah.
You know, for the winter and the summer solstice, and just themes on life. This is his project page, which has a, wait, go back, where were you just at the project page? Yeah, you go to his website, which is wdij.org.
And you know, Lisa, I'm also open to meeting with all you guys, person to person.
That's great. So why don't you just pick on like summer 2012, or, you know, piece.
Let's see. I have one suggestion for you. It's
Okay.
called You. Yeah, click
Yeah,
on
do
that one.
that one. That's a nice one. They're all wonderful. Is the sound going? Oh, that's Olympia. The sound. You have to do share sound on your share screen choice, I think.
I'm learning so much being on this.
Our unending love, transiting the starfield of Andromeda, beckons to us across the fabric of time. Come, again and again and again, in an infinite embrace birthed in 1 trillion star systems. Unity, union, love, created you. You, we resurrected in ecstasy's caress, to journey through Gaia's portal onto spaceship Earth, creating your initiation, birth, into her mystery school of flourishing transmutations. Home, ever present, radiant in its vastness, insightfulness within the veils of our perception. Cosmic masters cycle wed, in this life wave, dimensions young. To love is our calling. To love is our calling. Come into us, my radiance, anointed by the light of Myrak. Our passion fire union beckons. Seed my blossoming into the realm of form on this journey without beginning, without end. Love, beauty, devotion, compassion, grace, splendor, intimacy, trust. Ours is an unending love. Endearment, tenderness, peace, nurturing, honoring, ecstasy, warmth, elation. Ours is an unending love. Joy, adoration, bliss, closeness, rapture, jubilation, celebration, magnificence. Ours is an unending love. Fulfilled in our seeding. Gaia, bountiful and beautiful beyond measure. And you, children of Gaia, mirroring a billion reflections of the life gift. Transcending our reptilian ancestry to flourish in the grace of a celestial family consciousness, at one with all that is, beyond the realm of terrestrial paradox. All back to where we are in the field of source. You, from the concealed into focused unlimited potential, awakening, awakening, awakening.
Thanks for sharing that, Lisa.
Thank you.
That was
for
really
sharing
cool.
that.
I liked that a lot. That was really cool.
So I urge you to go through the website, dwij.org. I have gone through I go through them. Sometimes when you're in those moments and you just want something, and it's a wonderfully inspiring, provocative, relaxing. It ties into a thing that my mom also. It's a thing in certain work where it's something called the collective unconscious. Carl Jung had a whole thing about there's certain archetypes. It's in our DNA as humans. You know, we all ultimately came from Africa, the same ultimate great grandmother. And there's a certain understanding and knowing as humans that we keep forgetting, and we have to keep remembering. And I see these images and it feels so transcendent to bring us full circle that even as we feel sad and distressed about things in the world today, it's just like in any family, you have, you know, children that misbehave. They have to be forgiven, understood, schooled. And you have ones that are reliable and have a lot, you know, it's like flowers in the garden. There's all different kinds. Some are tall, some are short, some are colorful, some are more pale. But they're all part of the story of human existence. And David, your work tells that so beautifully, and we thank you for sharing that and your incredibly inspiring story. And that I gotta say something's going right, because for somebody that's been through all of what you've been through, including surviving COVID, I should hope if I ever make it to 80-something years old, I'll be looking this good. I'm gonna tell you right now, I should hope so. For my medical opinion.
Well, it's so wonderful being with you, and also a challenge for me because it's impromptu, and it was like, well, I haven't received anything, but let me just go on and trust that the flow is going to be okay.
And that's what we have to do a lot of times, is trust. And that's what we teach the kids. I'm sorry, there's a little background noise on my end here. Is go with it. Be confident. Be in your moment. Every moment prior to the moment has prepared you for this moment. It's okay. Just do your best, you know? So our last question that we often ask, and I think you started off with the answer at the beginning, but if for students interested in careers in science, technology, engineering, arts, math, health sciences, or other similar things,
Yes.
you know, and you're a poet too, by the way, what advice do you have for them?
It's something that I've shared in a lot of my workshops, and it applies to all your different paths. And that is, if you have an idea, if you have a vision, if you are called and your spirits call you, forget the intellectual stuff. If you're just called, my advice is to jump off the cliff and learn to fly before you hit the ground. I've jumped off a lot of
Now,
cliffs.
there's a disclaimer, MHI is not telling y'all to jump off any cliffs without any parachutes, okay? This is a metaphorical discussion, point of information.
But actually, it's that we're so afraid to take that leap and trust. And for me, in something like these huge projects, like an aircraft, building a boat, going to Argentina, deciding I'm going to build voice control furniture, you jump, and then the wonder is, on one hand, all of the information is out there on the planet that can come and support you reaching that goal. And the other side of it is, and this is way beyond religion, because I see religion as just different types of fishbowls for me, and the great fishbowls. And I'm happy that everyone can embrace that which works for them. But for me, there is a dimension of universal perspective that's so far beyond that we can't even understand. And it's what enables me to be here with trust. It enables us to be together on this day of historical change, realize there's this incredible change happening, and realize that we're going to all persevere and get through it and realize our dreams, because that's why we're here.
That's it.
It's unfolding that.
And that's the best gift you can give them, is it's the gift of hope and believing in oneself, and the power of that spark, that innovation, that willingness to question, that willingness to not go along just because everybody else is going one way. 2 years ago, when I look back on the, those share your memory thing, whatever things, and I remember MHI back in March 2020 telling people, you better put masks on.
Sure.
You better stay in. Is a storm is a coming, and it's going to be real bad. Everybody's like, party time, it's the Asian flu. I mean, trying to make it derogatory, trying to find a way to distance and stick with privilege and act like it's not going to really happen, and denial. And then it starts to hit, the storm hits. But the people that listened and heard it and could understand with the available science at the time saved lives. And Ken, I was not popular, I can assure you. I was telling the mayor, you got to shut this thing down, put masks on people. Business, I was like, no, it's people gonna die. Okay, I was emphatic. So when you have that moment that happens in your life, and it's going to happen, and it may happen over and over again, sometimes, if you're particularly chosen, you have to have courage, is what David is saying. You have to have courage, and you have the conviction in what you believe. If it's coming in your heart and from what you know, and if what you know is that truth, and if it's a good truth, and it's not going to hurt somebody with that truth, then believe in that truth. Okay, because people get things in their ideas and all of that, and it is not the right truth. We know that happens too. And if you have others that are thinking with you and they're affirming you, like, yeah, I think that does make sense. Yeah, let's like, and you create that critical mass. Because most change that happens in the world, if you read another great book for summer reading, for those of you, I'm not giving you other summer reading, but I hope you are reading, is The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. The Tipping Point. And he has studied these things, these major changes in human systems and history. You know how many people it takes to make a major change? He's got it down to a science. Is it 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people? 500? It's 150 people. That's the tipping point. You get 150 people thinking the same together, persisting. You can change an entire dynamic in the world. Like David said, he had the spark. Then there was a team that came together around that and made transformative engineering that the rest of the world had to catch up to. Okay. Because there was also the part of like, how are they going to make money, or who's going to lose out on their money? And, you know, it's just like that movie Cars. Remember back in the day that was making the joke about the cars and all that. Well, no, it wasn't Cars. It was the other one. It was a Toontown, whatever, about, and it was talking about how LA, how they used to have trolleys. And they had this whole system. They were going to build mass transit, and they had the capacity. But it got shut down by the emerging car industry, and they built freeways instead. And now
it was the Red Car Company, which I wrote on back in 1956.
Right.
Before it was taken over by it was the oil companies of New Jersey, one of the big oil companies.
Yeah, Conoco or Exxon or
yeah. So yes, right on with that.
Yeah. And so one other question I have for you, David, and I know the day is getting long for the kids, but this is such a treasure. I want you to speak to what do you think was in it in you to not let yourself be discouraged by the overt racism of the times in which you grew up? And could you speak to some incidents or episodes that maybe you had to overcome or not let hold you back in terms of?
There are too many to list, and it would become overwhelming, and some of those things are scarring to this moment. The most important thing for me is there was something that was instilled in me from my parents and from my culture, and this is very important also. I was a citizen in the US before my parents. So, and I don't know, I know the Caribbean culture, but I was brought up not only in New York in a Caribbean culture, but in a community that was German, Irish, Jewish, Hispanic. During the Second World War, it was this wonderful, incredibly rich community. What, to me, is my greatest gift towards success and handling the racism is that from my formative years up until 1952, I only had radio. So when I listened to Buck Rogers, Green Hornet, all of these heroes, those heroes didn't have a color. I was just inspired because that was me. And it wasn't until the evolution of television that there was this dynamic where Hollywood could control what people were supposed to look like and who they were and what their places were. And so I saw that change in spades. But through it all, and and I will, no, I won't go there. I'm lucky that I'm alive today. That's all I can say, because the stress of not wanting to be here is so incredibly compelling. The possibility of wanting to give up life is so compelling. And I've been on that threshold. And something said, no, not now. And there are places where, you know, where even, I flew for a while, of course, with the aircraft. And there were places that I thought I was going to crash, and something pulled me out of it, and my plane didn't go down. So there's something that's keeping me here. However, to your point, Lisa, I have to work with that something to want to be here. And that is probably the most trying challenge that I have. And what goes along with that is forgiveness, because the hatred, the anger, and the rage is still there. I have the ability to transmute it into something creative, but it's still there. But it's the ability to see it and not let it be you, not let it overcome you. And this is incredible balance of paradox. And there's a philosopher by the name of, I think his name is Fred Freak, something similar to that. But his whole system of thought is paralogical theory, not paradox, but paralogical theory, in that everything happens in the same moment. The most horrid thing and the most beautiful, blissful thing is all happening in the same moment. And we have to somewhere be in the center. My card for the day, I wrote equilibrium.
That's a good one.
You know.
And in that balance.
Yes.
Yes, I think that's a perfect theme for me to open it up to the students. I know some of them must have a few questions for you.
Okay.
Such wonderful encouragement, and the whole idea of transmutation. I so really, that's why I started MHI 25 years ago.
Wow.
You have to put the pain somewhere. You know, be Black in America, it's a painful experience. I will tell you, it's a joyful experience, but you're constantly the cumulative micro and macro aggressions and sufferation. It's a Jamaican word, sufferation.
Lisa, the side of that is so incredible. If you look at the Akanga, if you look at the aircraft, the boats, it took people of all cultures to make that happen.
That was the world.
And the narrative that we have here in this culture is a narrative of division mostly. And we have to get to the point, not only that we transcend that, but you know, when someone talks about racism, and this is something that you've probably experienced. I grew up in, like say, a Caribbean culture, in a Black culture, Black African-American culture in New York. Well, you can say there's racism here, but then there's the shade consciousness. And there's the stuff in the community about if you're poorer or richer within the Black community. It's an absolute madness, and it comes down to man's inhumanity to man. We're all in this together. We're all walking each other home. And how do we get to the point that we can embrace each other and not get conned into things about division by the media?
Well said. So I'm going to ask the students, are you going to put a question in the chat, or are you going to put a question to David? Now's your chance. Your heads must be brimming over with thoughts.
Well, I'm just thankful that you've hung in this long. And it's great seeing you, feeling you.
This is precious. This is a once in a lifetime experience, David. We thank you for the treasure of this opportunity. I mean, this is like getting a chance to talk to Leonardo da Vinci. Okay, I mean, come on. You think they're gonna miss out on this? I mean, this is amazing. So who has some questions for him?
I have a question actually. So I first of all, I want to thank you for what you said at the little, beginning opening. I think it was very apt and very correct, and I really appreciate it. I appreciated it because I think a lot of us are feeling very pessimistic about the situation, and that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about, because what I've noticed is that I know a lot of people, a lot of young people who care deeply about so many issues, but it feels like we tend to have a very difficult time getting past the sadness of the reality of the situation, or the difficulty of the situation, being able to move beyond that in order to actually engage in
Yes.
things that will make the world better. And I just wanted to ask, do you have any advice for moving past that? Because I feel like it's such a strong emotional barrier that oftentimes it prevents people from doing anything at all, which obviously is worse than doing just something. So I think that's my question.
Yeah, I don't see it as an emotional barrier as much as a programmed conditioning, because you, as young, gifted, insightful beings, have incarnated onto this orb, and you know what you're supposed to be doing. You're all in that path. That path is in opposition to the fiscal material construct of a consumer-driven, controlling corporate military industrial complex. Now, communication. We're communicating. That's key. It's you can only be responsible for you. But the important thing is, if you can be true to yourself, every step you take will be infectious. Lisa mentioned 150, 125 people. Every time, just by being out there, emanating who you are to the best you can be, time after time after time, that touches others. And I believe that very fastly, there will be mechanisms of media that aren't controlled by corporations, that are controlled with an essence of who you are, and that will be so infectious that it will be on a global level, address things that are happening in an old paradigm, whether that old paradigm is here, in England, in Asia, in India, wherever. Just being yourself. And you've chosen to incarnate on this orb at this time. And these are pretty heavy changes. And it's like, you know what you're dealing with coming in. So here you are, and just looks out there for places that can support you, because there's so much brilliance out here,
Right.
waiting to be tapped, waiting to be connected with.
That's
It's
right.
like, which channel are we on? It's like tuning into the proper channel, not
Frequency.
only in a sense of the spiritual dimension or the psychic dimension, but tuning into what's helping each of you to make your dream happen.
And it's happening amongst the team. It happens every year. It's this magic, the synergy.
Oh, yeah.
When I look at what the students really helped to achieve over the last couple of years, Olympia was the lead on some amazing and powerful initiatives that impacted literally thousands of people. If I had said to Olympia, you as a second-year student are going to help change the world, Olympia would have been like, I'm just trying to finish school. I don't know what you're talking about. Then Olympia went and changed the world. It's still changing the world. Okay. And so, and even though they would try to put them out of school. I mean, so we understand that you have to think and believe. One of my other favorite sayings from Wayne Dwyer is, if you visualize it, you can realize it. Because thought precedes all action, intended action, thought out action. And thought is powerful. mean, that whole metaphor in the Matrix is not too far off. I mean, it's electrical activity. And there are things called engrams, like in rehab or in sports. We actually have people mentally rehearse things to relearn or to improve the performance of things. You know, if you're a dancer, I was a dancer as an athlete, and that mental training is the gift that I got through my life story early on. By being an athlete, it taught me, first of all, you have to practice. Stuff just doesn't magically happen. And that includes mental effort, that includes whatever it is you're doing. You have to have a good coach to listen to your coach. You have to have a good team and work together and make sure everybody's coming along, because you're only as strong as the weakest person on your team. You know, I'd run anchor on the track team, but if Vanetta, who was really the powerhouse, she came on the third leg, she closed the gap, and then all I had to do was hold it and bring it home. And that's a great metaphor for the team. Everybody has different capacities, but all together, we do amazing things. Other questions?
I wanted to do something. I was thinking I want to send something to Mo. However, can you guide me through, because I'd like to take something, if I take a visual and I put it into the chat box, will it show up?
No, I think it's better to do an email. If you could do a reply to all on the email I CC'd you on.
Okay, should I do
And
this
that'll
now?
go to everybody.
Should I do this now or afterwards?
You can do it now. We're
Okay,
multitaskers.
okay, I'm gonna do it right now.
Meanwhile, somebody's gonna ask another question. Who
Great.
else has a question? Keisha, you've been quiet. You have any questions? Mara?
Oh, no, not really.
Just soaking it up.
Yeah.
Did you learn something?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me
Well,
soaking this up.
I have a question for Mara. How is she gonna use her artwork in terms of creating change in the world?
You know, she already illustrated a book that's been published called Me, Myself, and My Amygdala.
So Mara?
Yes.
Yes, hello.
What else, Mara? What else you got going on? Mara had some other ideas she's working on.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like just being a role model, you know what I mean? In the sense of where it's like I'm a young Black female in America who's gone through a slew of health issues and is still standing and producing artwork, so that other little girls eventually one day, you know, they'll see my work just like how I look up to you and other people and think like, oh, I can do that too. Like she can do it, I can do it. So, you know, definitely by that. And then I've also been working on, in terms of like the mental aspect and spiritual aspect, some pretty interesting new work. Just channeling everything that's going on into my head and putting it on the canvas. And the same thing with like, you know, life and things that are extremely upsetting to me, and transferring that in the ways that I can onto a canvas. And hopefully people will see my work and be able to kind of have the same sort of release that I get, you know, just in terms of like understanding it and everything like that. And then eventually I want to continue doing some more like art therapy work with people, because I had done that in the past with like ex-convicts and stuff like that. And they really seem to be enjoying it and, you know, took a liking to it. And I think that that's something that could be beneficial for a lot of people. So, you know, just here, there, and everywhere. My usual style.
Wish you a lot of success on that journey. And I'll tell you, you have a long way to go to get to 83.
Good point. What do you do between the bookends of those times, right? That's
Right?
60 years. We got a little time, Mara. You're doing great work. And I think also your cooking, your creativity, and your nutritional component that you've been helping us with, Amara, and work with Glemmy on the podcast and the recipes. She makes artistic food creations, David. That's the latest thing. The amazing array of how she cuts and chops.
On the plating.
Oh,
It's
guess
a-
what?
Yeah.
I've just found out how to do it. So I'm going to send, let me do this now. Open. There we are. Take that one.
And just remember, when he was young, there was no TV until he was almost grown, and he is now copy pasting, editing. So you can keep learning. Okay, it's amazing.
Oh, yeah. God, what a journey. And why I'm sending this to you, I created it. It talks about when I lived with the Native American culture, and it talks about the good red road, which is the road of life, and the red road of life and the blue road of spirit. And so it tells the story of an infant coming into being in the context of their pueblo, seen through the eyes of the eagle, who's regarded as I guess, as the closest to Wakantaka, as the closest to spirit. So I'm going to send this. I hope it comes through to you.
Are you going to email it? Or?
It's in the email list and it's going to 9 people.
Okay. So at this point, what I am going to do is I'm going to offer, because we've gone a little long in the group, but we definitely want to keep going because some may have other obligations. Are there any other last questions of David? And those of you who need to go, you can go. And those of you who can stay, I encourage you to please stay. Lemmy?
I don't have a question per se, but I just wanted to thank you for your words because I felt like they're very motivational. Also, thank you for addressing your the current issue at hand. It's very frustrating, obviously, for many of us. And again, as Olympia said, people can see it from a very pessimistic view, but hopefully this could possibly turn into an opportunity where our generation or anyone in general stands up and like makes a change and makes that change a little bit more permanent. You know, I think there's always opportunity in problems, obviously, because with problems there are solutions. And I think that's both scary and exciting at one point from a different perspective. So yeah, I wanted to thank you for addressing that because I feel a little bit seen. I had to navigate those emotions today, and it's very frustrating. But yeah, anyways, in regards
Thank
to
you for sharing that, Glenn.
Well, I'm going to thank you for sharing. And one of the things that I feel is the emotion as you share. So I encourage you to take that emotion and that spirit that you have, and whatever form you creatively feel would express that more, just delve into that a bit. It's very, very powerful and very, very, very incredible what you sharing.
oh, thank you.
The essence.
Yeah, get your friends to vote.
Absolutely. I guess one of the only questions I've had, because you talked about a lot of your success and you talked about overcoming fear in regards to stepping out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
When was a moment where you stepped out of your comfort zone and it didn't go the way you intended, and how did you navigate that? Like, how did you bounce back per se?
Okay. I decided that I want to make a backpack aircraft. And I had a lot of success with my aircraft. And I always had a fear that I was going to perish in an aircraft accident. So for maybe 15 years, I would have this recurring dream of crashing in an airplane. And I moved to New York, and the last one of my airplanes was Paramoto that I designed. And I had to go to a training school to learn how to fly a Paramoto, which is a backpack aircraft, which means you have the engine on your back with the propeller behind you. And you have a parachute way in the back. You start the engine up and you start running, and the parachute gets the air and you fly. Well, I was in a training session in Long Island, in Mauritius, and they would tow you up to altitude by putting a cable on your chest and hooking the other side of the cable up to a Jeep. And the Jeep would go down the runway. And as it went down the runway, you would start running, and it would lift you off the ground. And you go higher and higher and higher. And then when you got to a particular altitude, you release the cable, and then you just be there flying, controlling the parachute. Well, I was told before I needed to take off that if there was a crosswind, I'd need to hit the release, because I'm towing like a kite. You see people on the beach. If you get 20 degrees either side of the center line, you'll dive in just like a kite crashing. So here I am. They're towing me down. I'm gaining altitude. I must be maybe, God, 800, 900 feet up. And I get a crosswind. And the instructor says, cut, cut. And I cut my cable, and I'm in the dream that I'm going to die. So I'm coming down, and it's the dream. There I am. And I'm, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? Am I going to die with this? And what happened with that, because of my panic and trying to be attentive and panic at the same time, the parachute has a brake. And I hit that brake, my mistake, 15 feet up instead of much lower. And immediately I hit the brake. But by that time I was coming in backwards, and I hit the ground on my back. And I have never felt that impact at all in my life. And they should have sent me to the hospital. But being a guy thing, all us guys together, I sort of laid on the ground for a couple of hours, and just before sunset, I did it again.
Did it work the next time?
I had the best flight of anyone that day. Okay, the downside of it was that 2 weeks later, I started having pain, and I realized these bulges in my stomach and in my abdomen. And what had happened from the impact is that I had cracked my coccyx, and everything inside was broken. Inguinal hernia, what's the other type of hernia in the groin?
Yeah, that's an inguinal hernia, ventral hernia, umbilical hernia.
Yeah, I had them both.
So you busted open your abdomen.
Yeah. So
that was an impact.
What happened with that is that I had 5 years of surgery. And
but what also happened was you faced the worst fear and survived it.
I faced the worst fear, but I survived that. And as you were asking, I was able to get up on the bike, ride again, and know what it's like when my body is healing from something like that. And my body is healed from it. But it's one of the times in my life that I realized that we have precognition of something that's happening 10 years later. And when it happens, it doesn't really turn out the way that we think it's going to happen.
So don't live in fear. So I put this is the image that you sent us. This is the one, the Osenge Bapawabe.
Osenge Bapawabe, which is in the Tiwa language of the Pueblo people of New Mexico. Osenge Bapawabe, it means welcome to my home. And so this is a welcome into that home from this idea of this infant coming into being, living the life of this family on the good red road, and then ascending into spirit, into the good blue road, and being held by the eagle, by spirit.
That's amazing. So it looks like we're losing our audience, but we'll have to bring you back. It's never enough time. There's so many stories in your stories, and
Well,
there's so much
maybe sometime
wisdom.
at a coffee house somewhere.
Yeah, we're right now still staying on virtual mode because
Okay.
many of the students are in different locations over the summer, as well as the safety factor with a 23%
Sure.
positivity rate. And several team members recently hit, unfortunately, with COVID. So we're
Well,
being
thank you
cautious.
for having me and for letting me share impromptu like this.
It's the best way, jazz, right, Ted? It's the best way. You just gotta flow, you know, gotta get the riff and going, and we really appreciate your patience and understanding as we kept trying to organize this, but it had to be the right time, and this was the right time with the right group of kids. So it worked out just like it needed to, like it always does. And we really are just so excited to hear how you've overcome so many things. And I think it's something people do need to hear on a day like today. So my brother called me with the news, and I was astounded. And I love that it was my brother that called to tell me, though. And we have to remember, we remember the time before there was a decision
Yes.
in the first place and what that took.
Yeah.
And so sometimes then you have to come things back around and galvanize to more thorough clarity that the interaction between any patient and their doctor is sacred. And end of story.
Sure.
And that has been the story for, and I wrote this on a recent post, is centuries. The physician-patient relationship is sacred unto none other. And so that any kind of decision that is made about a person's body with their doctor is their right and their decision. And certainly as a clinician, and certainly we did have Dr. Edelman speak at one of my classes in New College many years ago, who wrote on common justice, and he spoke, and he was part of the protagonist on how they got this whole decision because of the caseload and how he was sued as a resident. It was an awful nightmare of a story that he lived in Boston. And what we were seeing back in those days that people don't remember now and don't understand. And that's why this was made, because it's always about risk benefit. And we know that it has been an important thing for 50 years. And we can only hope as we evolve that we will pull stronger together. So Rebecca, did you have anything to add? I want to thank you for hanging in with us. I know it's a lot for you to take in. Our new director of programs and operations is just on fire and had a pretty busy week with us.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that I decided to hop on tonight. I don't always come to Journal Club, but I think it was just meant to be this evening. And just want to echo what my colleagues have said, and appreciation for you being here. I appreciate you sharing your experience with the education system and how that essentially failed you, and hearing about your overcoming that system that was not good to you, and all of these incredible things that you've accomplished despite that barrier. And that just touches a special place in my heart, and just want to thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you. And we'll be, Glemmy, is your hand up or is that just still up from before?
Oh, it's up now. I just wanted to know if this is wrapping up. I wanted to give the closing statement for.
I was going to invite you to please do that. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
No problem. So once again, thank you for being here, David, and thank you for everyone who contributed to this conversation. It was awesome to hear everybody's thoughts and just to listen to your stories. And it was super motivational and inspiring in many directions. With that being said, that does conclude our Journal Club podcast for today. We will be posting these regularly at one point or another. We are still figuring this out, as this is all a learning experience for all of us. With that being said, thank you again for listening. If you have any questions, there will be links below. And yeah, have a great day or night, or whatever time it is where you are.
Where you are. And remember, you can always find more information on the Multicultural Health Institute Facebook page or our website at www.the-mhi.org. Or call us on the Safekeeper hotline at 941-906-9484. Sign up for our newsletter and keep up with our regular updates on what we're up to, and also share yours. We're happy to hear from you as well. And we also have our Healing Circle the third Wednesday of every month at 6:30, and a variety of other ongoing educational activities we hope you'll join us for. Thank you again. It's June 24th, 2022, a day we will all remember for a long time coming, and a day that we neutralized with a very, very upbeat and powerful and inspiring message from David Gidden. Thank you, David. We look forward to many more
Thank you
good
all.
experiences with you. Keep creating and keep bringing the joy that you are in all our lives. God bless.
Bye.